What's interesting is the process usually gets very comfortable very quickly, I've noticed, and most of the people that we have as trustee investors would rather have our team look at that property than them ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to a point, if you want to call it automatic pilot or at least semi-automatic, where they just kind of get an idea what the investment is and they just kind of are comfortable going forward because they've seen what they've been in the past.
Right, and they know we're looking out for that next investment for them.
Exactly, because I think they understand, one, our long relationship in the business, but they also realize, I mean, it's a good thing to have their money to lend over and over.
Absolutely.
And if you don't take care of it, you don't have it to lend over and over. So, I mean, that's just such a priority.
What's interesting, I think, is the priority, certainly in our business model, is it's much harder to find the source of money that will put it up for loaning than it is the borrower. I mean, if this disappears, that's not possible.
Right.
And so they're both a very important part, but we would never risk this pile of money to retain somebody over here. That would not happen.
Oh, yeah, no, you just can't do that. Because the one thing that somebody buying a house, you touched on it earlier, they want that transaction to go through.
Absolutely.
So the way it goes through is you have money to give them. And once again, I can't tell you how many calls I get where somebody else has promised them something and hasn't performed, and then the Norris Group gets a call and we have 5 days to do it, which is difficult. I mean, we can't always perform in their time frame, but fortunately, a lot of times we get involved, we can save their deal, because having access to money is what the business is all about.
Let's talk about the types of property that we lend on. So, I mean, 90+% is the same boring house.
Yeah, I think I've looked at the same house on different streets like for, almost 20 years now.
Right.
But that makes for a good investment.
Yes, it does.
It really does. You're just looking for something. Even just recently, to give an example, I mean, it doesn't mean that it can't be sometimes the house is too nice for the street, which is an appraisal that we're just looking at. Like all the houses on the street are like 1,800 square feet. Well, somebody's buying a almost completed home, and it's a 3,500 square foot house. And frankly, there's miles before you have a 3,500 square foot house. So yes, it has a little more value, but I would just soon do the 1,800 square foot house.
Correct.
Because that's what people are going to buy in that neighborhood.
Okay.
So,
but by and large, our loan business is made up of single families that people fix and resell, or they rent, and also small units fit us into that, the 2 to 4 units.
Yes.
Okay, so that's somebody's going to get a trustee investment from us 90 plus, 95% plus, maybe 98% time. It'll be that single family or 1 to 4 units. An investor's bought it, wants to fix it or keep it.
Yeah,
okay.
That's almost exclusively.
On occasion, let's talk about the kind of the less often, but an apartment complex. Somebody buys an apartment complex, and I know that we're going to head into that market at some point. What'll be different about that is the request for probably very sizable money up front, and the loan to value probably lower than even for the house.
Right. And just with the way banks are right now, it's creating openings in markets where, maybe that wouldn't have been necessary 5 years ago. But it is necessary now for people to look at other options, because you either leverage it some way or you pay all cash.
Right, and that's the thing. There'll be opportunities for investors coming for really nice properties that make sense cash flow wise. So the trusted investor that's looking at that has several $1 million to put into one loan, they look at that and go, okay, that makes perfect sense. I'm protected a multitude of ways, equity and cash flow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Land, probably a loan we really aren't too excited about doing.
No, the only time land is an issue, we touched on it earlier with construction loans.
Right.
If somebody's going to build a house or something on a piece of land, we'll do the construction part of it, but we basically want them to have the land already paid for.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's not what they expect to hear, but through experience, we figured out that's probably a real necessary piece.
It's okay. It's okay for them to hear that.
Yeah, it's okay. If they have to take it elsewhere, but we're really again trying to protect them from getting too aggressive, because if they can leverage that land 10 times or 90%,
right,
they can get into a lot more houses, but that may be not good for them either.
Right. A lot of people leveraged way too much, as we know, over the last 3 years.
The last category would be construction loans, and construction loans we're probably not really concentrating on those at all right now, but I could see a couple of years from now where that will be something that we concentrate on.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very big market for us. I just think, once again, with the simplicity of borrowing the money, and we did it a lot in the last cycle when it was going up, and it was very successful, so I think we can really capitalize on that.
Craig, once the person with money's agreed to the trust deed investment, then what's kind of the process next?
Well, what they'll do is they'll either via email, we have that capacity now, or FedEx, or come in the office. They'll basically get a set of documents. It's not unlike signing, a deed of trust or signing loan, borrower documents.
Right.
So they'll sign documents. They either wire to us, bring in a check, and then we wire the money from our office to escrow. We close the transaction, and it goes from there.
When the transaction closes and they're in this trust deed to get a monthly check.
Yes.
There's sometimes an expectation that 30 days has passed. Where's my first check? So explain that first payment time spread and where that's
usually what happens is when a trust deed closes, say if it closes on the 15th of the month, a lot of times it's not due if it's, say, just using this month. Say something closed on December 15th.
Correct.
Their first payment might not be due till February 5th, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes they miss the fact that they're getting a small interest check to make up the difference from the 1st of January back to the 15th.
Right.
And then a lot of times there's the payment's due on the February 5th. It might not come in till the 7th, the 8th, because they have a 10-day grace period. The way the servicing part of it's set up, we do hold it for a period of days. So sometimes it can take a while to get the first payment out. But then what I tell them, the main thing to look for is once you get the first one, it usually gets pretty regular after that.
It's repetitive after that first gap
almost
in time.
Almost all of our clients have a very consistent paying pattern, whether they pay it 10 days early on time or right at the grace period. Once it gets started, it usually comes in pretty consistently.